occupied territory on the far left coast. You're listening to On the Move with Mack, Worley III.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and members of the Mack Pack. I appreciate you all tuning in today. As you know, my name is Mack, Worley III, and this is On the Move, the show that attempts to inspire you to stand up for your rights. The date is October 26, 2014, and we have a really good show in store for you. We're going to be talking about a lot of different topics today. I mean, I've got a ton of material. There's absolutely no way that we have enough time in the show to cover it all, but we're going to cover some main topics here. First and foremost, I want to talk about freedom of speech, and that's actually the title of today's episode. You know, do you have a right to not be offended? We're going to talk about a topic that I found regarding this, and I would like to illustrate it for you guys. We're going to talk about lawlessness in the government, specifically with our public servants, and civil forfeiture as well. And when we get to civil forfeiture, you guys are going to really see what this system is and how unjust it really is. A lot of you may not actually be familiar with the civil forfeiture system that's in place right now. So if you're like me and you had no idea about this, we're going to talk about it in great detail here. Additionally, I want to talk a little bit about no refusal DUI checkpoints. And I think it's important to address. I think that it's something that we should be talking about. And I have a clip from a DUI refusal checkpoint where they were drawing blood from people that did not consent. So I want to talk about that. I'll play the clip for you guys in a little later in this show here. And lastly, I would like to also talk about the Obama administration's refusal to implement any kind of travel ban from West African countries affected by Ebola. So, again, I got a ton of other articles, different topics, lots of other audio clips and videos that I would like to play if we have time. But additionally, if you have anything that is on your mind, please feel free to give us a call. The number to the show is 619-924-0986. Again, that's 619-924-0986. Our Mack Pack phone lines are open, so light them up, guys. Any topics that you would like to talk about are on the table. So you can always join that way by calling, or you can join the conversation by emailing us at talk@onthemoveshow.com. Also, don't forget to check us out at our website, onthemoveshow.com. Here at blogtalkradio.com/onthemoveshow. Make sure you follow us on here. And also like us on facebook.com/onthemoveshow. You can subscribe to our YouTube, youtube.com/onthemoveshow. And follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/onthemoveshow. And anyway, you know, I want to move forward here and just get right into some of the stuff here that I wanted to talk about. I don't know if any of you are like me. You've probably heard a bunch of your friends who are like vegans or vegetarians, you know, getting on you about how wrong it is to eat meat. Okay, I personally love eating meat. I'm a big meat eater. You know, I like steak. I like chicken, and I don't subscribe to the philosophy of if it had a face, I'm not going to eat it. Okay, so that is one of the big tenets of like vegetarianism and veganism is if it had a face, or if it's produced from a body like milk or eggs, something along those lines, that they have a moral objection to eating it, and they only eat plants. Well, I've been doing some research, and I have found two rather interesting topics here that I would like to touch on. I know this isn't related to some of the stuff that's going on in the news and stuff, but I think this is pretty interesting. So first and foremost, I have a video here about how plants respond to pain. And I think this speaks at the heart of the vegetarian and vegan argument that it's immoral to eat meat. Because of the pain and suffering that we put forth on these animals to eat it. You know, granted, some of this stuff is unnecessary, but at the same time, we do have to eat. We have to eat somehow. So anyway, if plants actually do experience pain, this may put in question the whole philosophy of vegetarians, vegans, all that kind of stuff. You know, if these plants are actually intelligent enough to feel pain, is it morally wrong to eat plants as well? And if that's the case, if you can't eat plants and you can't eat animals, what are you going to eat? So anyway, here's the clip. And this is from the Smithsonian Channel.
Anesthetist Monica Bermelin is about to perform an unusual experiment. Her patient today is a houseplant. The slightest touch makes its leaves spring shut. Normally, that's a defense against insects, not hospital staff. The anesthetist is going to try to stop the mimosa's signature leaf movement. She's giving it a drink of ether, an early knockout drug used in humans. After an hour, it's time to test the result.
So she's touching the leaves right now with a...
There's not a flicker of movement.
And the leaves are now...
The mimosa seems to be out cold. In humans, ether works to stop nerve cells from transmitting signals. But a plant has no nerves, so why does the ether work? The answer might lie elsewhere in Germany, at the University of Freiburg, where Professor Edgar Wagner is conducting an experiment on electricity. It was long thought that plants do not use electrical signaling, but that thinking has changed. Professor Wagner will demonstrate how electrical signals pass through a plant. Electrodes connect the plant to a computer, able to record the faintest of electrical signals. This plant is in for a shock. The professor burns a leaf. And the computer comes alive. The injured plant is producing a definite electrical signal. A 50 millivolt charge races across its body and down its stem, passing through the same tiny tubes as its sap. It surges forward like a human nerve signal, though the signal moves more slowly than it does in humans. The plant shows a definite electrical reaction to the flame. Likewise, with the mimosa, tests suggest that electrical signals are what trigger the plant to flinch. When the mimosa was treated with ether, it stopped transmitting these signals and went to sleep. These are just two examples of electricity in plants.
Okay, so that is a possibility that plants can feel pain through the electrical signals sent. And if that's the case, these vegans and vegetarians out there who claim that eating meat is unethical could potentially fall into a position where plants could also be unethical to eat. So what do they eat? This is something I've been trying to figure out myself. I really don't know what they would do in this circumstance, because a lot of the argument... and just so you know, right now I'm in the process of finishing up a finals in a philosophy class. One of the topics that we covered extensively was animal rights and things along those lines. And, the big argument was that it's unethical to eat animals because, they feel pain, they are experiencing subjects of life. And, that was why they recommended that people, totally abolish the farming industry and the industrial farming complex, things like that. But personally, I totally disagree. First and foremost, I love meat. I like to eat meat. I'm guilty of that, I guess. But secondly, if this is actually going down the line of finding that plants actually feel pain, that's a big chunk out of their argument. That's all the food that we have. You got plants and you got animals. You don't have much else to eat. I don't know what you're going to eat other than that. Maybe minerals. You can eat rocks. I don't know. Anyway, another article here I found on modernfarmer.com. It's titled, "Eating a Leaf Off a Plant May Not Kill It, but that doesn't mean the plants like it. The newest study to examine the plant intelligence, or at least behavior of plants, finds that plants can tell when they're being eaten and send out defenses to stop it from happening." So if that's happening, these plants are semi-intelligent. I mean, at least they have a reactionary response to external stimuli, which some would argue is, the most basic form of intelligence. So, anyway, I know this isn't really, groundbreaking news as far as politically, but I think this is interesting, and it goes to the heart of the debate on animal rights. And just so you guys know where I stand, when it comes to animal rights, I think that animals should not suffer needlessly. I think that, we shouldn't, abuse animals or treat them improperly, poorly, when we don't need to. If there's no other choice than to have a bad situation, I still don't think that's something we should do. I think we should sort it out. But more to the point, as far as like hunting and producing meat and things like that, just look at deer, for example. Okay, we have annual hunters that go out and they basically thin the herd of these deer. Throughout the United States, there are many places that actually don't have any kind of natural predator for deer. So if there was no hunting, the deer population would become overpopulated, and then all the vegetation would become, would get eaten from these deer. Other animals would not have food to eat. So it would cause famine with these animals on a large scale, not just with the deer. The deers would starve to death and suffer, but additionally, other animals would starve to death and suffer, and the animals that ate on the animals that were starving to death and suffering would be starving to death and suffering. So you see how this would make a growing trend. And then people who are eating animals, we would be hungry because we'd have less animals to eat because, all these animals are starving to death. So it's an important thing that we actually go out there and conserve this animal population by thinning the herd down to a more sustainable level. That's what hunting does. Hunting does it prevents the suffering from the deer from starving. It also prevents the suffering from other animals in the chain from suffering as well, but it also feeds hunters. And, I think overall it does a heck of a lot more good than bad. And anyway, that's my argument. And more importantly than all of that is that humans have to eat. It may not seem like a big deal nowadays, but starvation is still an issue in the world. And to literally take food out of people's mouths, I completely disagree with that. And we have enough problems with hunger and starvation, worldwide famine. I mean, who knows when the next great famine could happen? I mean, it could happen here in the United States. Who knows when it could happen? So anyway, that's my take on animal rights and hunting and things along those lines. I think hunters are naturally more conservationist than most of these so-called green movement people that we see nowadays. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and move on and move into the first segment of today's show, and we like to call it the Weekly Defender.
And now it's time for the Weekly Defender. You have the right to defend your life, the right to defend your family, and the right to defend your freedom.
All right, this is a segment of the show where we report about armed citizens in the news who have used their firearms to defend their family, their life, or their property. Our first Weekly Defender we found on KBOB in Albuquerque, New Mexico. A pair of armed robbers entered the corner store in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and demanded cash. As the pair were leaving, the clerk went to lock the store's door, at which point the criminals leveled a gun at him. The clerk responded by firing at the robbers, striking one and causing both to flee. The thieves fled in a vehicle, but were involved in an accident. Police caught up with the criminals, finding one dead and arranging for the other to be taken to the hospital. The surviving robber will be charged with murder in the death of his accomplice. And this was on the 21st of this month, so just the other day. Let's see what day that was. That was on Tuesday of this last week here. Anyway, our next Weekly Defender we found on theblaze.com. Earlier this year, Second Lieutenant Joshua Nelson found himself caught in the middle of a potential life-and-death situation during a routine trip to Del Rio, Texas Walmart with his wife and his kids. The family was just gathering some items for a trip to the lake when a woman's distress screams derailed the otherwise peaceful night. "Stop! Put it down!" he heard the woman yell. Nelson said he quickly located the horrified woman and saw a pretty large man holding a big fish fillet knife to her stomach. Nilsen, a West Virginian Air National Guardsman, told The Blaze he has a concealed carry permit and carries a firearm everywhere he can while he's off base. His wife also carries. Before I even walked over, I told my wife to go to the front of the store with the kids and call the police, he said, explaining that his first concern was the safety of his family. Nilsen said he then carefully approached the knife-wielding man and thought real hard about drawing his gun. He ultimately decided to keep his hand on his firearm and let the assailant know that he was armed rather than drawing out of fear that he might cut the woman in a panic. I didn't have to draw, he told the Blaze. He knew I was armed, and at that point he became a little more cooperative. I was pretty forceful in demanding him to keep the knife down. But the attacker ended up turning the knife on himself and threatening to attempt suicide. Nilsen proceeded to talk the suspect down, telling him that it wasn't worth it and that he would assist him in getting some help. Finally, Nilsen said the man complied with his order to drop the knife and kick it towards him. At that point, he said the suspect started to run away, but again followed orders when the armed lieutenant told him to stop and to sit down. Nilsen said he mostly relied on all of the training he's had. Police eventually responded to the scene and put the suspect in handcuffs. Nilsen said he later discovered that the woman he was threatening was his own mother. He turned the knife on his mom when she refused to buy him a gun, according to a copy of the police report obtained by the Blaze. So I want to talk about this story here a little bit. This was actually back in April. And how many of you have heard about this? Have you heard about this American Air National Guardsman who stopped somebody from being stabbed potentially in a Walmart here? Did you hear about how an armed citizen stopped somebody from committing a crime in a Walmart, by the way, which, by the way, as moms demand action, as you know, they say that you don't need a gun to shop at Walmart. Well, luckily for this woman, this Air National Guardsman didn't follow their advice. Otherwise, things could have ended rather badly. Who knows what would have happened? And additionally, he didn't even have to draw his weapon. The mere presence of a firearm and the insinuation that it could be pulled out if it was needed was enough to prevent this crime from happening. And additionally, this says here that the police eventually responded to the scene. Eventually. How long is eventually? Was it 30 minutes? Was it 20? How quick is quick enough, by the way? If somebody has a knife to your stomach, how quick is quick enough? I would say it's certainly quick enough to have a gun in your back pocket or, on your hip. I would say that carrying around a firearm is far safer and probably a smarter decision than waiting on police to arrive, because as we all know, police response times are ridiculous and almost a joke. Unless you just so happen to have a police officer in the area, there's a mere coincidence that they happen to be around, then maybe you can rely on that. But I would not put all of my eggs in that basket. That's just me personally. Anyway, I love hearing about how law-abiding citizens use their firearms to protect themselves. You have a right to defend your life. You have a right to defend your family, and you have a right to defend your freedom. We at On the Move, we support your rights. And if you have a story about how you lawfully defended yourself, or you would like to comment on one of these stories, we would love to hear from you. Please give us a call. The number to the show is 619-924-0986. Again, that's 619-924-0986. Or you can email the show at talk@onthemoveshow.com. And at this point, we're going to go ahead and cut to a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back with more. And I believe the next segment we're going to enter into, we'll just go ahead and go into the Mack attack when we come back, so don't go anywhere.
Support On the Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/onthemoveshow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services, from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
Broadcasting from deep within occupied territory on the far left coast. You're listening to On the Move with Mack Worley III. Stand up, speak out, and get on the move. And now your host, Mack Worley III.
Back. Appreciate y'all sticking with us. So, okay, we covered veganism, vegetarianism, canned plants fill pain. We talked about the weekly defender and how having a firearm with you presently is a very safe alternative to waiting for police to respond. And there's that saying that I'm paraphrasing roughly. I carry a firearm because a police officer is too heavy. I do like that saying, and it's true. Honestly, I mean the police are not around when you need them all the time. So sometimes you have to take matters into your own hands, and obviously we all know that we have the self-evident right to defend ourselves. So anyway, with that said, we're going to go ahead and move on into the next topic of the show here, the next segment, and this is a segment that we like to call the Mack Attack.
It's time for the Mack Attack!
All right, Mack Pack, we got a lot of stuff to cover today, so just try to stick with me here. This is going to be a lot of information and a lot of different topics here. First thing I would like to get to is a spoof that was conducted by the Saturday Night Live crew, and they're basically ridiculing Obama, and it's basically Obama, some actor pretending to be Obama, saying that Ebola is probably one of his greatest achievements of his administration. So and unfortunately it's probably true. So anyway, here's the clip.
Next on C-SPAN, earlier today, President Obama introduced Ebola czar Ron Klain, who took questions on the latest developments in the Ebola crisis.
Well, thank you all for coming. As you know, just 2 days ago, another American, this time a doctor in New York, was diagnosed with Ebola. Now, some people want to criticize the way our administration has handled this crisis. And it's true, we made a few mistakes early on. But I assure you, it was nowhere near as bad as how we handled the ISIS situation. I mean, our various Secret Service mishaps, or the scandals of the IRS and the NSA.
Yeah, actually, that's actually pretty true. I mean, sweeping things under the rug, using the IRS to politically target conservatives and Tea Party groups. I would say just gross incompetence across the board is actually better than actively trying to target political enemies.
And I don't know if you guys remember, but the Obamacare website had some pretty serious problems too.
Oh, believe me, we remember.
In fact, if you look at all the stuff that's happened my second term, this whole Ebola thing is probably one of my greatest accomplishments. Now, I'd like to introduce the man who will be managing this crisis moving forward. New Ebola czar, Mr. Ron Klain.
And, I know this is a spoof, but the Ebola czar, that is a real thing. They've created a position for the person who's in charge of managing the Ebola crisis, okay, and this person is called the Ebola czar. And I don't know how you guys feel about the title czar, but I personally, I have an issue with the title czar, especially in use of government. If somebody wants to jokingly, give their position the title czar of something, as long as you're not in government, I don't care. It's, if you're trying to be funny, whatever, that's fine. But a czar, in the government, I have a total problem with it. It's going off of, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, a czar is actually a title given in Russian, like feudal government kind of style, where they're basically the lord. It's almost like a title of nobility. I have a major problem with that.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you. Thank you, members of the press. I'm really more of a behind-the-scenes guy, but I am excited to take your questions. Yes.
Mr. Klain, you have no actual medical training or background in dealing with infectious disease. Is that correct?
Yes, that is true. I am not a doctor, but to be fair, I did serve as Chief of Staff to Vice President Joe Biden, so I do have some experience with a little something called foot and mouth disease.
Okay, so that's actually something we're going to talk about here in a few minutes here, and get to some of the flubs that Joe Biden has had on the record and pretty publicly. That really doesn't get a whole lot of coverage in the news other than like conservative viewpoints, like the Fox News or the Blaze or something along those lines. You don't see a whole lot of Biden stuff being put on, let's say, NPR. You don't hear Biden's racist comments on NPR. You don't hear it on MSNBC. These things, they don't pay attention on CNN. They don't cover these kind of things. But hey, at least it's out there somewhere, right?
It seems like that's a joke disease. Just to confirm, no experience with actual medical diseases.
No. Next question.
A lot of Americans still don't understand why we haven't issued a travel ban on flights from West Africa.
Oh, we're going to get to that in a second.
Okay, at this point, a travel ban on countries with Ebola would be an overreaction. If anything, we should be more afraid of the flu. It kills many more people every year.
But 0.01% of people with the flu die from it. And with Ebola, it's 50%.
Yes. Well, we could all go throwing statistics around.
Actually, it's 50 to 90%, since we're throwing around statistics.
Such as?
I don't have any with me at the moment, but if you just give me some time, everything will be 100% cool as hell.
According to the Obama administration, 70% of the time, things work out 100% of the time.
Mr. Klain, some have speculated you were brought in mainly to handle this from a political perspective. Even the midterm elections are in 2 weeks. Any comment on that?
Yeah, right now I am not worried about winning elections. However, there are a few safety tips that people should know heading towards Election Day. For example, the Ebola virus actually flourishes in warmer climates, So if you live in a southern state such as Louisiana, Arkansas, or Kentucky, you actually may want to avoid any large public spaces like, say, a polling booth. One exception, however, is that we believe Latinos in red states may actually have an immunity to Ebola, so they're good to go. And now, finally, we wanted someone from New York to talk directly to you. So we asked Mayor de Blasio and Governor Cuomo, but it turns out there was only one New York Democrat willing to be seen with President Obama today. Hey!
And they got some guy dressed up as Reverend Al Sharpton. So anyway, that's that clip. It's got more to it. I won't play it all, but there's a lot of points that I want to talk about in this little video here, and I'll get to them rather quickly. First, just so you know, it was I believe it was a joke. What they were saying about the warm climate of Ebola. I've actually discovered that Ebola is actually better off in cold environments. So we have the upcoming flu season. We're entering into winter. This is something that we all need to keep in mind. The spread of this disease is probably going to increase, I'm guessing. Obviously, I'm not a medical professional, but that's just my prediction. Anyway, so I want to talk some about this foot and mouth disease from Joe Biden that he was joking about there in the clip. So, Joe Biden, he has obviously, had quite a few flubs from his time making the rounds, and basically, one big problem with Biden, he's a wild card for this administration. They don't know what he's going to say because this guy is just an idiot. I'm sorry. Biden is a loose cannon wild card. Nobody knows what he's going to say next. And people look at him like, oh, it's just Joe Biden. Who cares that he's racist? All right. Well, here's a clip. This is Vice President Joe Biden speaking at the Legal Services Corporation 40th Anniversary Conference on the 16th of September 2014.
My son is Attorney General. A year in Iraq, came back, and that's one of the things that he finds was most in need. When he was over there in Iraq for a year, people would come to him and talk about what was happening to them at home in terms of foreclosures, in terms of bad loans that were these Shylocks who took advantage of these women and men while overseas.
Okay. So if you are not aware, let me please just address this here. I'm hoping that Biden did not know this, but the word that he used to refer to these lawyers was Shylock, and that is a racist word. That is the name of a Shakespearean character, the one who's, when they were talking about take your pound of flesh, it's basically referring to Jewish people as being greedy people. And he used this term to describe these lawyers. This is a racist term. Can you imagine if somebody on the right said something like this? Oh my God, the left would be up in arms. I mean, they would be, trying to kill this man, basically. This would be the most talked about thing ever since Bridgegate. Oh my God, they closed down a lane. Oh no, what will we do? And that obviously turned out to be nothing. Nothing was linked back to Christie himself, although, people in his campaign were found to be responsible through trails of emails and documents and all sorts of other shenanigans. But yet nothing came to Christie. And the left, they were salivating. Oh my goodness, they were just hoping that they could somehow connect the dots to Christie because they wanted it so bad. And I mean, honestly, this Bridgegate scandal, I know we're off into the weeds, by the way. Well, I'll bring us back here in a second. But this Bridgegate scandal, it actually affected Christie. Now, I mean, so many people are against Christie. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't like Christie either. But that's not anything to do with Bridgegate. But it affected his numbers and his chances of winning the presidential election. Who knows what's going to happen with him now? I don't even know how he's doing in polling, but I'm certain that it's a lot worse than it was before Bridgegate. Anyway, so Biden has other comments that he makes that are just ridiculous. So here, let me play his comment about being the vice president and what he thinks about being the vice president.
I'm a senior at the college, and I'm the vice president of the student body here.
Isn't that a bitch? I mean, excuse me. Vice president thing? Whoa.
So apparently Joe Biden thinks that it's a bitch to be the vice president. So, no surprise he's going to run for the president of the United States. And, I am really hopeful that he does not make that. But, this guy is just, no idea what he's saying. Honestly, I think he's got to be close on the edge of being senile because the things that he says just are outrageous. I would love the only person to speak for this administration would be Biden because, I mean, it would at least be funny. At least as our rights are being pulled away from us and stripped day by day, we would have a good laugh about it, right? Because of how stupid he is. You know what? Instead, why don't they just put a clown up there? At least a sad clown because, he's sad that our rights are being taken away, but he's still juggling, so it's kind of funny. Anyway. So, let's talk about this Ebola travel ban that we've been trying to get going here for a while, and apparently the administration does not think that it's possible. They seem to have a problem with two words, and those words are out and in, okay? They think that because we want to ban travel coming out of West Africa, what they hear when we say out is in. And that's not what we mean. We're not saying that we want to ban travel coming into West Africa. We want to ban travel coming from West Africa to America. unless those people have gone through a 21 to 25-day quarantine period, I think it's reasonable. How in the world does that affect how supplies and people can come into the country? And anybody coming in for any kind of humanitarian purpose or mission, there could be some kind of exception for that where they can be highly screened and made sure that, they have some kind of special priority so that way they can get in and out if they need to. And additionally, let's say they got sick, maybe we could even bring them back to the United States. I'm against that personally, but you know what? In the case of somebody who's risking their life for other people, I could see an exception being made, and I could see the majority of people agreeing with that. And okay, all right, I'll digress on that, but I still think personally that we should be taking care of the problem in West Africa. So if somebody has Ebola, why in the world would we bring them here is beyond me. I will not figure that out. That is the most illogical thing ever. We could spend a little bit of money, put some kind of mobile unit on the ground down there. If we want to actually fight the problem in West Africa instead of in our neighborhoods, why don't we just take some kind of mobile hospital and spend a little bit of money to nip this in the bud where it is? In is not out, first of all, okay? Those two words, they mean entirely different things. In is the antithesis of out. So to ban travel coming out of West Africa, not from everywhere. I could give a crap if somebody from West Africa goes somewhere else. That's none of my concern. What is my concern is somebody from West Africa going from West Africa, moving on to the United States. That's where I have an issue. That's where I'm concerned about. So I don't care if they go out anywhere else. More power to them. I don't care. If the other countries around them want to have some kind of travel ban, that's on them. That's up to those governments and those people. That's not up to me. But what I am saying is that out is not in, okay? So we could still send things there, but we don't have to have stuff from there come our way. It just makes sense to me. Perhaps I'm missing some big thing I don't understand. Maybe I'm just a total idiot. But anyway, I have a clip here from Judge Janine, and, she's talking about Ebola coming to America and the travel ban. Here she is.
Hello and welcome to Justice. I'm Judge Janine Pirro. Thanks for being with us tonight. Ebola. What a mess. No one, and I mean no one, should be allowed to enter the United States from any West African nation ravaged by Ebola. And any American citizen who goes there and wants to come home needs to be quarantined for 21 days until we figure out what we're doing. Look, we have a real problem. I don't want to hurt anybody, and I'm good with sending humanitarian aid to those in need, fill up those C-130s with supplies and doctors, and do those military transports. But guess what? At a certain point, you take priority over everyone else in the world. And when it comes to the health and security of your family and my family, everyone else takes a back seat. The fact that we're even having this discussion is insane. Now, we're told that it would be counterproductive to the economy of Liberia to stop flights from coming here. Really? Another country's economy is not the criteria to determine whether we put our families at risk. And trying not to offend the rest of the world, making nice so people won't be angry, or making other countries economically successful, and any other politically correct hogwash coming out of Washington be damned.
Look, I get this argument that Janine is Judge Janine is saying right now, that this is speaking to me. I don't know if it is with you guys or not, but it is not our responsibility to take care of everybody in the world. It's not. It's not our responsibility to ensure that we're not doing anything that's going to economically damage anybody else. We don't have to be concerned about that at all times, okay? And when it comes to safety of our citizens, that's the CDC's job. I need to point that out. That is their number one job, is to prevent the spread of infectious disease. But they won't say anything about a travel ban because of political correctness because, oh, no, we don't want to isolate these other countries. Out is in and in is out. Those words are two different things. Those words have absolutely different meanings. They don't mean the same thing. And when you ask them, why can't we have a travel ban from people coming out of West Africa to the United States, are like, well, we can't have a travel ban because then it would prevent people from going into West Africa to help. No, that's not what we asked. That's, again, why can't we have people not be able to come out to the United States unless they've been quarantined for 21 to 25 days? But if we do that, they won't be able to come in to the country for aid. That's why we can't do it. It doesn't make any sense. They keep saying the other word. I'm saying out, you're saying in. It doesn't make any sense. And again, it's not our job. We're not the world's economic police. We're not in charge of everything. We're not even the world's doctors. You know, this crisis with Ebola in Liberia, this is not our responsibility. We're not the world's doctors. We're not responsible for everyone's health care. You know, yeah, it sucks. And I actually like Liberia. Liberia was actually founded by Monroe. These have very constitutional roots with our founders and everything. This is actually a good country. You know, I don't know a whole lot about it, but I do know that there is some roots with our founders. You know, I might have to do some more research on this. But anyway, you know, I don't have any problem with these people. I think, hey, more power to them. Fight the disease, but it's not our responsibility. Now, granted, we can see how it could become a threat to us. So, yeah, maybe we should do something about it because we don't want it spreading to other countries and then it somehow coming to us as it did already, you know. But their problem could be seen as our problem later, and I get that, which is why we're doing something about it now. But it's not our responsibility. We don't have to help these people, and we certainly don't have to help and worry about their economic situation. We need to worry about us. We need to worry about what's going on with us, the potential danger for this virus to come to us and kill our people. There is a point, as Judge Janine said, that you are more important than others. Your safety is more important than someone else's if you're at risk. That's just my point anyway. But anyway, we're going to cut to a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about this. And I want to play the CDC, one of their boss's responses when he was asked if they had considered a travel ban, if they had basically decided against it. Anyway, I have a bunch of his dodges where he's trying to dodge the question and not answer it. It's a yes or no question. Have you considered a travel ban? Yes or no? He refuses to answer it. So anyway, we'll be right back after these messages. Don't go anywhere.
Support On The Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/onthemoveshow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LAGOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
Broadcasting from deep within occupied territory on the far left coast. You're listening to On the Move with Mack Worley III. Stand up, speak out, and get on the move. And now your host, Mack Worley III.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for sticking with us. The number to the show, if you'd like to participate in the conversation, is 619-924-0986. Again, that's 619-924-0986. And if you would like to, feel free to email the show at talk@onthemoveshow.com, and we'll read your emails on the air, answer your questions if you got them. And anything, like I said, is on the table. So, again, feel free to call. And I see in the chat room here we got some chatter, and W. Dean is telling us that my problem is that I keep trying to apply common sense to a situation where common sense is not common. And you know, I understand, and I agree with you. For some reason, you know, and first of all, I have to point out, I personally don't like the use of the words common sense. I don't like that phrase because the left has basically hijacked it in terms of gun control. You know, they say gun sense and common sense, you know, measures of gun control and crime protection, prevention, things like that. They have basically turned something that I used to love, common sense, in terms of, you know, Thomas Paine's writing of rights of men and things like that. Those were common sense. But the left has hijacked it and they've turned it into something completely different. And now it means more restrictive, more loss of liberty. You know, that's what common sense refers to. But in general, the general use of the word common sense, that's what this stuff is. If somebody has a deadly virus, are you going to invite them into your home? Because that's what America is, our home, all right? They may be our neighbors from across the ocean, all right? But why would we invite them to our home if they have a deadly virus, or could potentially have a deadly virus, or come from somewhere where somebody had a potentially deadly virus? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. There's no common sense involved in this process whatsoever. It's all political. It's all, we're the world police. We're supposed to be looking out for everybody. We're in charge of their geo economy, blah, 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 whatever. I mean, this stuff is asinine beyond belief. So anyway, I want to talk about the CDC boss here. This gentleman just was refusing to answer the question about a travel ban. I got the clip. Here it is.
I know I've talked to a number of healthcare professionals as well as many of my constituents, and listening to the panel as well. I want to join with Chairman Upton in urging the president to immediately institute a travel ban until such time that they can firmly and scientifically prove that Americans are safe from having more Ebola patients coming into the United States. And I know, Dr. Frieden, you expressed disagreement with that. Have y'all had any conversations within the White House about a travel ban and whether or not the president has the authority? Because many of us have said the president does have the authority to do it today.
By the way, you know, I think it's quite hilarious anytime the Obama administration says that they don't have the authority to do something, because it's only a matter of time until it's politically helpful for them to do that very same thing when suddenly he finds that authority. You know, I didn't have the authority the other day to do this, but guess what? Now I do. I found it. It was in my back pocket this whole time. I didn't realize it. My bad. I'm sorry when you conservatives were, you know, really wanting me to do this, but now I have the authority.
Point of view of CDC, we're willing to consider anything that will.
But have you considered that, and have you ruled it out, or have you not considered it at all? Have you had conversations with the White House about a travel ban? That's a yes or no question.
You should see the look on this guy's face. I mean, this is just ridiculous. This guy is just standing there or sitting there with his mouth wide open, you know, like, I don't know what to say. And this is what we see anytime these politicians or bureaucrats get put in the hot seat and they don't want to answer the question. They dodge and dodge and dodge and then play stupid and act like they don't know. And what does the word is mean, as Bill Clinton tried to do? But here he is. Here's some more.
Have you had conversations with the White House about a travel ban?
We've discussed many aspects.
How about a travel ban? Have you had that conversation?
We've had discussions on the issue of travel to and from West Africa.
And have y'all ruled it out?
I can't speak for the White House. I can tell you
can
that
speak for the CDC. If you were in those conversations, maybe they had their own conversations without you, but if you were involved in conversations with the White House about a travel ban, did they rule it out? Are they still considering it?
From the CDC's perspective, we will consider anything that will better protect.
So are you going to answer?
He's yet to answer any of this man's questions. He's asked him probably, 10 questions so far, and he has yet to specifically and directly answer the question. Many of these are yes or no questions. Yes, no. Have you considered a travel ban? No. Yes. I mean, it's simple. All you got to do is say yes or no, but you got to, anytime these politicians are put in a yes or no situation and they refuse to answer, I automatically assume that they're a liar and they cannot be trusted.
Answer the question about your conversations with the White House. Is the White House considering a travel ban?
I can't speak for the White House.
Do you know if they've ruled out a travel ban?
I can't speak for the White House.
Have you had conversations with them about it?
We've discussed the issue of travel.
All right. I would urge you, at a minimum, if you've ruled out a travel ban, if you don't think it's the right way to go, there are a lot of people that would disagree with you. At a minimum,
lot of people.
You ought to look at least immediately suspending visas to non-U.S. nationals seeking to travel into the United States from Sierra Leone, Liberia, and Guinea. Have you all considered that or discussed it or ruled it out?
At CDC, our authority is to quarantine individuals or require the isolation of individuals.
But earlier you...
And apparently they're in charge of installing bike paths and playgrounds and all sorts of other stuff that have absolutely nothing to do with controlling diseases. They're also responsible, from last week I remember reporting that they are conducting studies now, lots and lots of taxpayer money going to conducting studies on violence in video games and media.
So you don't think there should be a travel ban. What about at least looking at suspending visas to non-U.S. citizens? Have you looked at that?
CDC doesn't issue visas.
But you can make a recommendation to the White House that it would be in the best interest of the American people to have that kind of suspension issued, can't you? Are you not aware of that?
We would certainly consider anything that will reduce risk to Americans.
And yet they have not done anything with a travel ban. The American people have not remained silent on this issue. We are really upset about this. Why has there been no travel ban? It doesn't make any sense. You would not invite somebody who's vomiting and bleeding from every orifice into your home. You would not do it. Why are we doing it here in our homeland? It doesn't make sense. We can fight the disease. Yes, if you want to participate, be the world's police, the world's doctor, the world's health organization, which I believe is actually an organization, the WHO. If you want to be a part of that, that's fine. Go ahead, be a part of it. But do it over there. Don't do it here at home. Jeez, come on. Don't bring it to Dallas. Don't bring it to New York. Fight it over there. Anyway, I got another clip here from, I don't know what news organization this is from, but they're talking about the travel ban as well, and here it is.
Chuck, this isn't fear versus logic. I mean, you have the director of the CDC who has been asked repeatedly why a travel ban wouldn't make sense. The head of...
So, by the way, notice that this guy next to these two people talking here, he's clearing his throat. Apparently, MSNBC hasn't figured out the art of clearing your throat without the microphone on, but I digress.
The CDC, he cannot provide a cogent, clear, logical answer. And so a lot of people go on TV and say, well, gee, the science community and the medical community says it wouldn't make any sense. Okay, well, fine. Chris Matthews brought up the point. I brought up that I think 65-70% of Americans agree with. We haven't seen somebody step forward and give a logical reason why we can't do two things at once. A travel ban would not stop us from working aggressively to stop the spread of Ebola in West Africa. It would only focus on stopping the spread of Ebola in America.
But I don't think a travel ban, I mean, let's be realistic here. There's going to be a lot of U.S. personnel, a lot of U.S. doctors that are going to be in West Africa fighting this disease. The fact of the matter is, trapped there. The fact of the matter is,
okay, they just said these healthcare workers might get trapped there. Well, what sense does it make for these healthcare workers to go there to fight the disease only to come back and bring it back to their loved ones? I'm sure that anybody willing to go fight this deadly disease, which, by the way, kills between 50, last time I heard 50 to 90%, but from what I understand, actually the death toll has increased up to 70% now. So 50 to 90% of people who are exposed to this deadly virus die from it. So why would a healthcare worker want to go over there to fight the spread of it only to come bring it back? Of course, they would be willing to submit to some kind of 21 to 25-day quarantine period. That would just make sense. And if they're not, don't go. That's their choice. They don't have to go. But if they want to come back, they need to go through the proper quarantine procedures. It only makes sense. And for them to be worried about, oh, well, healthcare workers will be trapped there. Okay, well, hey, additionally, I had already said, remember when I said just a little bit ago that we can bring them back? CDC, they are in possession of this big quarantine plane. And this thing, if it was to crash with somebody with Ebola in it, it will maintain the airtight seal so this virus would never escape. CDC has it. Apparently only one plane is in existence like it. According to reports that I've heard, CDC isn't really that helpful and they don't really like to share that thing, but it is totally possible to make exceptions, have these people come back, which has already been done. They used this plane once before. So somebody who wants to come back and they don't want to be quarantined over there, they can come back and be quarantined here, or if they're sick over there, they can come back and be treated here. And if they're healthcare workers, I don't have too much of a problem with it as long as everybody else is okay with it, But I honestly, I don't even think they need to do that. I think they should just do it over there. If somebody's sick, let them be healed over there. Let's focus on the virus over there. Nothing's stopping us from bringing stuff in to help these people. Yeah, the medical systems over there suck, but if we're bringing in experts and we're bringing in supplies, why can't we help those people with those experts and supplies? Even if they are some of those experts. And the thing about it is, if it's easy to move somebody from West Africa to America, it's equally as easy to move stuff from America to West Africa. That's just my point. Maybe I'm talking too logically here. I don't know.
We are going to see more Ebola patients in the United States that all stem from maybe a member of the military who's been helping to fight because of a protocol. And then are we not going to bring that American back to an American hospital and treat him for Ebola? And it's going to happen again.
Of course we are.
No, I understand that,
guys.
But that's what we're looking at.
No, of course that's what we're looking at, and that's fine. That is controlled. You know who the American healthcare workers are, and you let them know before they go over that they're going to come back. And because they're on the front lines in this fight against Ebola, they're going to be treated special and taken care of, and we can fly them back, and that is something that we can control. It's not an all-or-nothing proposition, and that's what the argument has been, well, gee, it's all or nothing. We either have flights going to and from, and we either are 100% and travel back and forth, or we have to shut the whole operation down. No, I expect healthcare workers to go over there and actually contract it. And
this is the thing. The conversation has shifted. In is out, out is in. Those are two different words, and they mean the exact opposite. Anyway, I want to move on. I'm tired of this Ebola thing. We've been covering this nonstop, it seems like, every episode since this whole thing broke. And, frankly, I just want to move on past this. But unfortunately, as you all know, it's dominating headlines, and everybody's concerned about it, and myself included, but I'm just getting a little burnt out, man. Oh, my gosh, every day pounded with Ebola. It's really important, and that's why I continue to report about it. But, man, if our government wouldn't have responded with such just gross ineptitude and lack of responsibility of taking action and actually implement a travel ban, this wouldn't even be in the headlines. This would be a nothing thing. Nobody would think about Ebola going on in Liberia. It wouldn't be a concern to most American people. Now we see Americans are afraid of this virus, and they rightfully should be. Mainly because we have a president who doesn't take it seriously. And again, over and over again, every time he talks about it, he says that it's really hard to contract. Well, if it's so hard to contract, why are these healthcare workers being exposed to this thing? Granted, they didn't have any kind of CDC procedures in place for this because nobody seems to take Ebola seriously. But additionally, I've already reported how Ebola can stay in the air, how you can get it from somebody coughing or sneezing on you or sneezing on their hand and then touching an object, and those spittle molecules have Ebola in it, and then you touch that doorknob and eat something, you've got Ebola. It's totally possible, and they're downplaying how you can get it. And it's just frustrating that this has been in the news so long, and I expect it probably will be in the news for quite a lot longer because of the ineptitude from this administration. Anyway, I want to play a clip here, and this one I've seen before, and I want to share it with you guys. There's a gentleman who's out walking around with a sign, and he's basically, I think he's with InfoWars. I want to say his name is Brett Sanders, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, he's walking around with a sign about Obama. There's nothing particularly offensive or obscene on this sign. And he has a conversation with a police officer about how something offensive is against the First Amendment, which there's nowhere anywhere in the First Amendment that says anything about the word offensive or obscene. However, we can get into the other stuff in a minute here. I'll play the clip here. Talking to a police officer here. Police officer's walking in his direction.
How are you doing, officer? Sure.
And he's bringing them away from the corner.
I want to get you in front of my video. As a matter of fact, this second, look at my video camera. What's that? Hang on, so I can go get my phone and video camera. Oh, cool. All right.
The cop wants to get his video camera and record him too. In the corner, skipping here a little bit.
Hopefully not. Do what? Said hopefully not.
Okay.
If you're not, then I won't. All right, somebody called us, said you had a offensive sign out here.
That is
offensive sign. That's what they said.
Man, too bad that's not against the First Amendment.
I don't see. Well, actually, offensive words are against the First Amendment.
No, it's not.
You want to come see? Come here. Set your sign down while I'll show you.
Apparently we have a Democrat cop here.
What's that?
He wants to challenge me on the First Amendment.
No, I'm just going to show you where it says offensive. I didn't see anything offensive on there. I'm just telling you what we were told.
Constitution in there? You going to show me or what?
Yeah. If you want to see it.
Let's go see the Constitution.
Walk in front of me.
So the police
Thanks, man. I'm just telling you.
Walk
I
in
didn't
front
see anything
of him.
offensive on there, but I don't know what you're
saying.
saying.
He doesn't trust him to walk behind.
I'm telling you what people are telling me when they're driving by here.
I don't care what they say.
Okay.
It's not against the law. You should know that.
I'm telling you why I'm here, okay?
I understand.
I'm not here to infringe on your First Amendment rights.
And he's oh my God, this really upsets me. Okay, this police officer is using quotey fingers to describe the First Amendment. He's saying your First Amendment rights, like it's not a real thing or like it's something silly. He's making fun of it, and I just have to point out they swore an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution, but yet they don't take it seriously. They make fun of people who do, and he's saying that he's not trying to infringe on this guy's rights, which in fact he is, because first of all, he was out there on a corner holding up a sign, and now the police officer even admitted that the sign didn't have anything offensive on it, and even still, who cares? You don't have a right to not be offended. I don't remember anywhere in the Constitution saying, and you have a right to not be offended. Congress shall make no laws abridging people's right to not be offended. No, it doesn't say anywhere in there anything about being offended. In fact, who cares? If you're offended, I don't care. It's not my responsibility to worry about you being offended. You know, if I'm out there doing political speech, I'm on a corner holding up a sign, about Obama, and you're offended by it because you're a Democrat and you disagree with me, well, who cares? I don't really have any argument for you other than you need to just get over it, because my speech and your speech is politically protected. The Constitution not only protects our speech, but it enumerates it, okay? So, and what I mean by that, these are all self-evident rights, okay? These rights, your right to free speech, it's not something that the Constitution gives you. It enumerates what we already know to be self-evident. Your ability to say what's on your mind, your ability to speak and have some kind of political conversation, it's protected because it's self-evident. So this police officer, he's trying to basically say that offensive language or things that are offensive are against the First Amendment, which is not true. The First Amendment does not say anything about except things that are offensive. That's nowhere in there, okay? And technically, the only law about speech that is constitutional is the First Amendment, because any other law at that point is Congress abridging free speech. And the Constitution is very clear, very, very, very clear on Congress shall make no laws abridging free speech. But yet, we've seen where the Supreme Court has ruled that it's okay for them to pass a law abridging free speech if you were to yell fire, for example, in a movie theater. That's the one that's used over and over again. Oh, that it may cause mass panic and people could be hurt because of your free speech, so we have to limit it, although that is clearly constitutional. Clearly. And, honestly, the reasons that the left will say, or anybody who's a proponent of this measure, of these laws that limit free speech, what they'll say is that, first and foremost, the founders could not have known how this would apply in modern society. But secondly, the Supreme Court's already spoken. Get over it. The Supreme Court, it's the law of the land. Supreme Court, they made their decision on it. Well, I'm here to tell you that these people in the Supreme Court, they're a joke. That's my personal opinion. They're a joke. They never had the authority to be the last say on everything. That was not anywhere in the Constitution. I challenge each and every one of you, look at the Constitution, find out what it says about the Supreme Court, because it does not say that 9 people are the final say on all things constitutional, especially these activist judges that are elected for life, sitting on their thrones for life, and their decisions have more effect on each and every one of us than any politician, because these individuals not only are appointed for life by a sitting president, appointed, not elected, they're not elected at all, but they also, like I said, are there for life, no term limits, nothing we can do, no recourse. You can't get them out of there unless, I don't know how to even depose a Supreme Court justice. I'm sure there's a way. It's probably an act of Congress to have to do it. I'll have to look that up and talk about it in the next episode. But you know what? Since they're supposedly the final say on all things, they could say it's unconstitutional for the Congress to do that. Who knows? I mean, these people have usurped the power. They were never given it in the first place, and they just decided that they were the final say on all things constitutional. So I give little weight to anything that the United States Supreme Court says, whether or not it's on my side or not. Every now and then they do happen to side in my favor, but hey, you know what? These people, I have no respect for. I don't have respect for the office. I don't have respect for anything. They're public servants, and this is something, side note here. We're going to sidebar for 1 second. I just want to talk about when people say, you don't have to respect the president himself, but you have to respect the office. Why? Why do I have to respect the office of the presidency? It's not a royalty position. It's not, it's not like it's like my parents or anything. And technically, I don't even have to respect my parents. I do, but I don't have to. You don't have to do anything at all. You own yourself. These people don't own you. You are a free person. You don't have to do anything. And in terms of respecting the office of the presidency, all right, you don't have to. Why? In fact, these people are servants. They're subordinate to you. Do you respect the guy who who washes your car. Maybe you do. Yeah, I respect people that work hard, all right? But, all right, even further back, let's take it to slavery. Do you think that the slave owners respected their slaves? I would argue they probably didn't, okay? So, which is obviously why they considered them property and why they were slaves in the first place. They did not respect them. So, our politicians are subordinate to us, not the other way around. If they were in charge of us, that would be a different thing. Then yes, we have to respect that office. But we don't work for them. We are not subordinate to them. We don't answer to them. They answer to us. I have no respect for any office in government. They're public servants, and most of these people are slime balls in the first place. I just have to point out that I don't trust anybody who's actively seeking power. I think it's important to address the fact that anybody that's looking for power is probably disqualified for the power that they seek. That's just my personal opinion. The only people that I trust are people that wish to put that power back into the hands of the citizens and relinquish power, but I digress. I don't think that we're going to see that anytime soon. So back to this video, this First Amendment competition here between the police officer and the concerned citizen holding a political sign, speaking his mind, using his free speech. Here's the video.
I'm telling you what people are driving by telling me.
Yeah, that's fine.
I've driven by a couple of times.
I said when I walked up that I didn't see anything offensive on there. And you said offensive stuff is not against the First Amendment. And I said, yes, it is.
Right. That's where we have a problem.
All right. Come over here. Walk over there.
And again, he doesn't want him walking.
Keep walking.
Behind him.
Stop.
This officer is, you hear these, he's a command.
Anything on you?
He's
I don't have to
commanding.
answer that, but I do.
Well, I just want you to stand where I can see you.
He asked him if he had any weapons on him. So this officer is sitting here commanding this guy and telling him what to do. Obviously, he's being detained right now, and the officer admits that he has no reason to be there in the first place. He looked and he saw, oh, there's nothing on your sign, but yet he's still making contact, which I don't think is necessary, but okay, he can do that. But now he's detaining this guy, giving him orders and commands, and go there, do that. I don't know if you have a weapon. Don't walk behind me. Stand there. Do you have a weapon on you? This is a very adversarial approach from a community servant. This police officer, look at what this guy is. He's a community servant. He works for us. We don't work for him, but he's barking orders around because he's got a gun, he's got a camera in this guy's face too, whatever. All right. He wants to record it. He can record it. But where I have a fundamental problem with is that this us versus them mentality that I'm seeing more and more, it's becoming more and more prevalent in police departments, where they are in control of every aspect of any encounter. They demand your papers and check to see if you have a weapon, search and seizure everything that you have. So here's some more from this video.
Okay. So I'm asking, is that your vehicle?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
I'm going to fast forward. Google. He's looking up the Constitution on his computer right now.
I'm standing around and
right here.
Google stuff.
You can look in there. I don't care.
All right,
Does the First Amendment
looking at the
protect
First
obscenity?
Amendment.
See right there?
Okay,
Okay, so the police officer looked up, does the First Amendment protect obscenity? And we're not talking about obscenity. Obscenity would imply like pornography or obscene things that, I guess it could be kind of considered offensive, but offensive and obscene are two different things. It's a different thing entirely. If obscene is, oh my God, that's obscene. Offensive is, oh, that's a little offensive. Like those are two entirely different words. And this police officer is trying to say that offensive things are the same as obscene things on signs about political speech. Anyway, we have a caller here. His name's Ian. He would like to make a comment. Are you there, Ian?
Yes, I am. Before I make my comment, I also would like to say I used to be a blog talk radio host myself. I used to be with the Coalition. I used to have a show called the E for Eternity Show, and I also have that show on YouTube as well. You can find me on the Ian Maddox channel. Democracy is what brings all this. all this stuff, because we're supposed to be a constitutional republic. You walk up to anybody on the street anywhere in any part of America, whether it be in inner city or rural America where I live, you say, what is America? They'll say America's democracy. No, America is supposed to be a constitutional republic, because in a democracy, we get things like what you see on this YouTube video, because democracy is a lynch mob, exactly what it is.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's the Orwellian state.
Yeah. Even Karl
so
Marx,
to speak.
the creator of socialism and communism, Marxism, he said democracy is the road to socialism. And that's why I'm not a big fan of democracy. That's mob rule right there. We are a constitutional republic. And man, you were singing to my heartstrings right now. I'm telling you, I say this all the time. Every time I hear somebody say something about democracy and all that, okay, we're a constitutional republic with some democratic tendencies, depending on the state. Some states, like for example Washington, where I'm at right now, we have direct democracy out here, where we can actually put actual ballots, initiative ballots on there for voters to vote on, and it has nothing to do with the Congress or anything like that. The voters actually vote the issues, which is why we saw the decriminalization of marijuana and in that situation, because it didn't get through with the House or with our Congress here on the state legislature. So these kind of things, I'm actually not a fan of direct democracy. I don't like it. I think it's mob rule, and I'm with you, brother, man. You're like I said, you're on point.
Yeah, anyone wants to check out my channel on YouTube, looking for it on the Ian Max channel. You'll find the Dr. Doom Marvel comic pick, and you'll find me on the E for Eternity show, and I have also a Facebook page. It's a group page, the E for Eternity show Facebook group. It's all written in caps lock. Look for it on Facebook. Just type in E4, and you'll find the group. You'll find a whole bunch of people out there.
Well, thanks for joining us, man. And anybody who wants to check out his stuff, feel free. Thanks again, Ian. So back to this video here. We got a couple other parts on here that I want to get to here.
If he doesn't step out in the road, or as long as he doesn't get out in the median, that is fine. Yeah. That is no. There's nothing obscene there. But I'm just educating you on obscenity.
Okay. Well, I totally understand.
All I'm telling you is what I got sent to us by somebody passing by, that you had an offensive sign that was obscene.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, obviously, they don't like it, right?
So where is the police responding to the false police report on that? Because obviously the police officer even admitted the sign was not offensive. There's no obscenities, no bad language, no offensiveness anywhere on the sign, unless you're a Democrat and you just think that anything negative about Obama is offensive. So why aren't they tracking down who made that call, who filed that false police report? That's where the real crime just happened, because obviously some liberal with their liberal agenda decided that, hey, I'm going to report this guy and make this guy's day bad, give him a bad day. And apparently the police just play along with it. Oh, okay, hey, this is what I would do if I was a police officer. I'd drive by, okay, sign not offensive. Who made that call? I want to talk to them. I don't want to talk to the guy out there. I want to talk to that person who made that call, because they've wasted my time, wasted taxpayer money, and they're trying to cause somebody's problem, somebody's day, make somebody's day ruined or something like that. So that's what I would do. Me personally, I would go after the real perpetrator of the crime, somebody that's filing false police reports. That's a big issue. And this guy, he said, I'm just stopping you to educate you. Well, since when is there a policy in police departments where it's detain and educate? I don't recall that anywhere. If that's the case, I'd like to detain and educate some police officers. In fact, I got another story here, and I really want to play this one. This is from Gavin Syme, and it's talking about a Washington police officer who was driving an unmarked car. Many of you may be familiar with Gavin Syme. I know I am. I've met him personally, but I would love to get him on the show. One of these days we're going to have to work something out to where I can get him on the show. Anyway, in this video, Gavin pulls over a police officer for driving an unmarked police car, which is in clear violation of Washington state law, yet they're knowingly and willfully violating the law. Here's the video from that.
Just flag this officer over. I want to make sure his unmarked car is legal. Afternoon, sir. Good. Hey, the reason I stopped you today is because I saw this car was unmarked. Is this a registered unmarked vehicle for undercover work, or? Okay, you're not allowed to have patrol cars that are unmarked. Are you aware of that under Washington State RCW?
I'd have to look
it up. But...
Yeah, you really should do that. So there's no there's no indication on this car. Mm-hmm. Okay, what's your name? Canfield?
Deputy Canfield.
Okay, Deputy Canfield. Can I see some ID?
Can you see some ID of
Yes.
me?
Yeah, I need to make sure that you're... No,
he's pointing to his badge or his nameplate.
You need to prove you're driving an unmarked vehicle, so I need to make sure you're actually a police officer and that you have the authority to be driving this vehicle, because you seem to be kind of doing something that's clearly in violation of Washington state law. So I just want to make sure you are who you say you are, okay?
Okay. Well,
okay.
Mr. Simon, I'm not going to the game with you.
This isn't a game. It's called law.
Okay.
Yeah. So can I see some ID and maybe license, registration, proof of insurance, sir?
No, I'm not going to say that. Yeah, this is my ID right here.
That's not ID, sir. If I showed you a badge, if you stopped me, would you take that as ID? Come on. Let's be reasonable. Anybody can have a patch, sir.
Okay, what about...
Is it a big deal for you to show me some ID just so I can make sure?
I can show it to you.
That'd be cool. That's all I want. I just like to make sure. Canfield GT51. Can I see?
ID.
Yeah, you can see it. You're not going to hold it in your hand, though.
Okay. Let me just get a close look at it there. It's fine.
Does that match this?
That looks legit to me. I appreciate it. I do.
Okay, so a lot of people out there may be like, hey, why is he giving this cop a hard time, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Though I understand the uninformed position on that, let me enlighten some of you if you are unaware. First of all, it is in direct violation for a patrol car to not have any kind of marking showing that it is a police vehicle. And the reason for that is pretty common sense. Anybody can just put some lights on a car or something and pull people over, and then people's families are at risk on the road. Who knows what kind of predators would do this kind of thing. So it's important that if you see lights going on behind you, you're driving your car, all of a sudden you see flashing lights behind you, you should be able to look out and see some kind of identification, some marking visible on that vehicle. That way you know it's a legitimate police vehicle. Otherwise, you don't know who's stopping you. The reason why this is against the law in Washington state, but yet they're doing it. These patrol vehicles are on the road pulling people over. Now, they're authorized to not have any kind of marking if it's a declared undercover vehicle. That's an exemption. All right? If it's an undercover vehicle used for undercover work, not patrol, not pulling people over, but for stakeouts or something along those lines, so where they can't have a marked vehicle, sitting in front of the crack house that they're trying to watch or something. Does that make sense? It should. I feel like I've clearly expressed that. So now back to the video and why he was asking for the ID, because he wanted to make sure this is a legitimate police officer, because police officers shouldn't be out in these undercover vehicles. It's against the law. So he wanted to verify if this is indeed actually a police officer or if it's somebody pretending to be a police officer.
Mm-hmm. I really do.
Driver's license?
You got a driver's license too. I appreciate it.
I do.
I appreciate the cooperation. Are you stopping people in this vehicle?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. It's completely in violation of Washington state law, and you are culpable in that, the way the law is written.
Okay,
so you've admitted that you are in violation of Washington state law and that you are stopping people in this vehicle. So what I'm going to encourage you to do, I'm not going to write you up today. What I am going to encourage you to do is take this car back. I know you're smiling, but we the citizens do have a right to hold you guys accountable. If I'm in open violation of the law, I mean, I could call a sheriff out here and demand that you be written up for this, because you are in open violation of Washington state RCWs.
Okay, so let's point this out here. When a police officer violates the law, it's still illegal. It's not okay because a police officer did it, that suddenly, there was no exemptions in the law that a police officer could do it. It's not okay that a police officer violates the law. They're supposed to enforce the law. The least we can expect is for them to follow the law. They're not above the law. They can't change the law, much like our president would like to do, just to be able to change laws however he sees fit. I got a pen and I got a phone, and I'm going to do what I can to go around Congress. No, that's not what police officers can do. They don't have any authority to change the law. They don't even have any authority to decide not to enforce that law, because it's law. Their job and only job is to enforce the law. That's it. They're not to make judgment calls other than its constitutionality, because that's what they swore an oath to uphold Before the laws, before everything, they need to decide if the law that they're enforcing is constitutional and then enforce it if it is. If the law is constitutional, their job is to enforce it. If it's not constitutional, their job is not to enforce it. That's their job. That's it. There's no additional parts to it. That's it. They're not supposed to just go renegade and start doing whatever they want, start, bullying people around because they're carrying a sign that's not against the law, or arresting people who aren't violating the law. Like, for example, let's say, law-abiding citizens walking around with guns and then arrest them for trespassing while they're standing on a public sidewalk, just for one example. I could name a couple more. But anyway, this is not their job. They're not to play, the nanny police. They're not to try to make people's feelings better, not to protect somebody from being offended. They're not an arm of the government used to make revenue. At least they shouldn't be. Now they are. They're not this group of people that's supposed to have quotas to fill in order to get tickets to fund the government. This is none of the stuff that they were supposed to do in the first place, all right? But their only job to enforce the law, not to violate it. So unless there's a specific exemption in this law that gives patrol vehicles the ability to have an undercover situation going on, no markings, no plates of any sort, unless that's going on, they're in violation of the law. And, of course, we know that there is nothing in that RCW that gives them the authority to do this. So they're violating the law, and that's a crime. If I commit a crime, I expect something to happen to me. I expect them to try to find me or track me down and arrest me and I'll go to jail if I commit a crime. But if a police officer commits a crime, he's a police officer. He's above the law. Nobody can tell him what to do. He just laugh at you.
Okay. So I just want you to talk to the sheriff about it. There's a problem with this in Soap Lake as well, and this is why I'm bringing this up lately. I really want you guys to be aware of this. I want you to follow along. Do you understand the safety concern? I mean, let's say it's 12 o'clock at night. My daughter's out driving around, and she doesn't drive yet, but you get the idea. And she gets stopped by what is supposedly a police officer, but there's no markings whatsoever, and that's one of the main reasons you should not be stopping people in a car that's unmarked, because that's when the safety concern really comes in. Somebody doesn't know if they're being stopped by a police officer. So understand that every time you stop somebody in this car, you are in violation of Washington state law, and you can't do that. So if we see you stopped in this car and have doing patrol stops in this car, we're going to have a problem because it's illegal. If you continue doing this, you could be arrested for that.
I could be arrested for driving an unmarked car?
For driving an illegal vehicle and refusing to comply?
Okay.
Are you saying that if somebody else was driving an illegal vehicle and wouldn't cooperate, that they wouldn't be arrested?
How?
That's an excellent point. So again, the way this law is written is that it's the officer's responsibility. It's their responsibility. So it doesn't matter if they were issued it from the police department. That doesn't matter. It's not the police department's responsibility if they're not the ones operating the motor vehicle. So whoever is actually driving around in this car and pulling people over in this car, that's the person that's responsible. So it doesn't matter if they were issued or assigned this vehicle. They're the ones that will be held legally accountable. And just like Gavin said, if somebody was driving around with an illegal vehicle, i.e. no registration, no license plate, and they weren't cooperating with the police officers, they would get arrested just the same. But police officers in this circumstance, they don't get that same situation. They don't get that same handling.
What are you comparing? I mean, it's kind of apples to oranges.
It's not apples and oranges. You're driving a vehicle on Washington state roads, on a Washington state highway, and it's in violation of the law, and you're accountable to the law just the same as me and anybody else is,
Okay.
Yeah. No.
So I need to just point out again, these people work for us. Police are not above the law. They are only to enforce the law. They're not to change it, not to interpret it in their favor. Their only job is to enforce the law, and they are public servants, which means that they work for us. So if anybody should have an exception to a law, you would think it would be us, because we are their masters. if anybody deserves an exception, it's us. They are our servants, our public servants. They work for us. They don't get exemptions. They don't get special favors because they're subordinate. We are not the subordinates. So if a law applies to the people, it definitely applies to the government and public servants, everyone across the board. And if there's an exemption in there for them, it better be a damn good one. That's all I have to say about it. Anyway, we're going to go to a commercial break, and we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Support On The Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/onthemoveshow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services, from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
Broadcasting from deep within occupied territory on the far left coast. You're listening to On the Move with Mack Worley III. Stand up, speak out, and get on the move. And now your host, Mack Worley III.
And we're back. Thanks for sticking with us, Mack Pack. The number to the show, if you want to participate in today's conversation, is 619-924-0986. Again, that's 619-924-0986. Or you can email the show at talk@onthemoveshow.com. So, when we last left, we were talking about free speech versus offensiveness or obsceneness. We were also talking about how police are supposed to be held accountable just like the citizens, if not more than the citizens, because they are subordinate to us. And additionally, I would like to talk about these no-refusal DUI checkpoints. I got another clip here of another video. Like I said, we're stacked with information today. There's so much stuff that I want to get to, and I can already tell we've got 27 minutes left in the show. There's absolutely no way we're going to be able to get to it all. So anyway, the next video I have is about suspects being subjected to forced blood draw at no-refusal DUI checkpoints. And these are people are basically under suspicion of drunk driving. And it has a lot more information on it. But this will go to the heart of this whole no-refusal at DUI checkpoints. It's really astonishing that this is happening in America.
Instead of taking no for an answer, officers now obtain a search warrant to forcibly draw blood and get evidence for the case. The key word there, of course, forcibly. But the video you have got to see. Randy, it is. I think everybody would agree that this is disturbing video, Russ.
I've never been raped by rape. This is so unnecessary.
So this guy is being held down by 5 male police officers right now. And he's being strapped into what looks like a gurney.
Excuse me, hold on. I never fought nobody. I didn't never do nothing. What the hell is y'all doing?
What they're doing at the Gwinnett County Jail is strapping down suspected drunk drivers to a gurney so a nurse can take their blood. Evidence that can be used against them later in court, even though the suspects refuse to give their consent.
What country is this? What country is this?
Of invasive procedure into somebody's body is ridiculous for investigating a misdemeanor.
Intrusive, certainly. Invasive, you bet. But legal, yes, say authorities, even though the law supposedly gives you a choice.
We all are American citizens. You guys got me strapped to a table like I'm in Guantanamo.
All right, this guy says, we are all American citizens, and you got me strapped to a table like I'm in Guantanamo Bay.
At the Gwinnett County Jail, every forced blood draw begins with strapping down the suspect on a padded table and putting them in a head grasp. Every time, whether they're compliant or complaining.
We can't take the chance that you're not going to lose your emotional control during a situation that is so sensitive.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, so let me go back to that real fast here. This was
your emotional.
Lieutenant Colonel Carl Sims. He's with the Gwinnett, Colorado, I believe that is. I'm guessing that's Colorado. Maybe County, Gwinnett County Sheriff's Department. I'm not sure. Anyway, man, we can't take the chance that you're going to go out of control. So we're just going to put you in a headlock, and we can't take the chance that you're driving around with alcohol in your system. So we're just going to strap you down to this table and pull your blood out of you without your consent and, strap you to this table, put you in a headlock, and pull your blood out of you. First of all, I have to point out that these DUI checkpoints, they don't actually work. There is no statistics proving that these actually work. In fact, many of these DUI checkpoints go and no one is actually convicted of a DUI. And that's mainly, what these people who do the checkpoints are contributing this to is that, they advertise ahead of time that they're going to do it. They put up these signs along the way, giving people plenty of time to turn around, and they allow them to turn around if they don't want to come into the line. So anybody who has any kind of, alcohol in their system is going to turn around or not go out in that area drinking and driving that night, So what did that really prevent if you notified everybody exactly where it's going to be and these people know to avoid it? All they're doing, and this is the bulk of what they get out of these things, is it's revenue. It's a revenue source. They can seize your drugs and your paraphernalia. They can seize your unregistered weapons, depending on where the state is. They search your car unlawfully, seize your money through civil forfeiture, which we're going to get to in a minute here. And then, they give you like little tickets or whatever for registration or licenses that are expired and things along those lines. No insurance, This is what it's for. They're making money. They'll stop hundreds of people, up to like 800 or 1,000 people a night, and they'll make money off of these people that they come through. This is not what the police department's job is. They're not a revenue arm, and it's not making the public any safer. All it's doing is redirecting the drunk drivers to somewhere else. There's no statistics that back up that these things are actually effective to reduce drunk driving at all.
Control during a situation that is so sensitive.
And it's not just male DUI suspects. This woman eventually pled no contest. Another is still waiting for her day in court. Both showed no resistance, but deputies still strapped them down.
Is there any concern that this just doesn't look good? I understand perception, but the reality of that perception is we work in an environment to where experience has shown us that you can play Russian roulette if you want to, but it's going to catch up to you.
And this is the biggest problem I have with police officer mentality nowadays, is that I'm going to do what I got to do to get home. Damn your rights, I don't care. I'm going to do what I got to do to come home to my family. Forget the oath I took to the Constitution. Forget the law. I'm going to violate it. Doesn't matter as long as it gets me home safely. So I'm going to take whatever precautions I have to do, even if it means violating your rights, because I work in an environment where I could get messed up if I respect your rights. Well, that's a job you took. No one forced you to become a police officer. No one. And I'm not saying that I don't have respect for police officers, which in fact I actually do have a lot of respect for police officers who are oath keepers. Those people get out there, they enforce the law, they make our streets safer while respecting the rights of their citizens. I got a hell of a lot of respect for those people. So what I do not have any respect for is that mentality, us versus them. The mentality of, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get home. I have no respect for that at all. Anyway, I want to. There's still a lot more in this video. I'm going to cut to the next one because we're going to run out of time here, and I want to get to some of these other topics here. So, in a video, in a clip from Last Week Tonight, that's a weird name, Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, he's talking about civil forfeiture, and I want to play a couple of minutes off of this because I feel it's really important that we talk about this. Hardly anybody knows what the heck civil forfeiture is, and I think it is an extremely important issue that we all talk about.
The police. They protect us, they serve us, and they provide us with an endless source of TV show one-liners.
Rock, paper, scissors, gun.
Well, I know Serena Williams, but I know one thing. It's all in the wrist.
Who'd want to cut your penis off?
Pick a number.
Okay, now, you laugh, but admit it, you want to watch the rest of that episode right now. Now, look. Public trust in the police is one of the most vital elements in a civilized society. But for many Americans, that trust has been undermined by a procedure called civil forfeiture. Now, I know it sounds like a Gwyneth Paltrow euphemism for divorce, but incredibly, it's actually even worse than that.
Civil asset forfeiture is really a mechanism by which the state and federal government can seize people's property without having to convict them of a crime. Most people can't afford to hire a lawyer to challenge it. It's really legalized robbery by law enforcement.
And think about it, that is a tough crime to report to the police. Give me a description of what the guy looked like. Well, to be honest, he looked a lot like the guy currently asking me what the guy looked like. And if you think this sounds bad, just wait until you see how it looks. Because the Washington Post recently published a major investigation featuring stories like that of this man, who was driving from Michigan to San Francisco with $2,400 in cash that his dad had lent him to start a new job when he was pulled over in Nevada.
I gave him my license and registration, and then as he was looking at that information, he asked me how much money I was traveling with.
Lee told him about this.
Why is that any of the police officer's business? How much money are you traveling with? If a police officer asked me that, I would simply just tell them it's none of their business and move on from that, hopefully. But, you know, the thing about this is this us versus them mentality, this revenue arm status that the police have synced into, have become this revenue maker, this money maker for the city. It's really changed the way that they deal with us, okay? And what I mean by that is that, you know, if you attempt to assert your rights just to move freely down the road unharassed, if you're not being suspected of a crime, they don't have any reasonable suspicion or probable cause, then they have no reason to detain you and you don't have to be there. And if you say, am I free to go, all of a sudden they think you're some whack job. Oh, you're one of those constitutionalists. Oh, my God. Oh, well, no, I just want to go down the road unmolested by you. How about you get your hands out of my pockets? I haven't committed a crime. What do you suspect me of? But yet, this continues. We see it more and more. And here's more in the video about civil asset forfeiture.
The money his dad gave him, which he kept in the trunk.
He told me to turn on my air vents on high and roll up my windows and get out of the car because he was going to run a canine around it.
Dove didn't find drugs, but he did find the $2,400.
He said, no, I'm going to keep the money because I've concluded through my investigation here that you are traveling from Michigan to California to purchase drugs.
Wow. I mean, there is so much wrong there, including the fact that any policeman who genuinely believes you need to travel from Michigan to California to purchase drugs needs to be introduced to the concept of the University of Wisconsin-Madison.
Look, here's the thing. This guy, he was not convicted of a crime. He was not suspected and proven that he had done anything wrong. He didn't even go to court. They just seized his money. That's called theft. That's called stealing. And in fact, that's actually robbery because the police officer used force, the threat of violence, coercion with a gun. That's armed robbery. This police officer just conducted state-sanctioned armed robbery. Nothing happens. Nothing's going to... Totally legal, totally legitimate. We'll just seize your assets. I could have sworn, correct me if I'm wrong, that there was a Fourth Amendment to the Constitution that specifically said that we have protection against unlawful search and seizure. However, I guess not the case anymore. They can just grossly violate. This has to be one of the biggest violations of the Constitution I have ever seen, and you will hear why as we continue.
Okay? It's right there. And the problem is, stories like that are surprisingly common. In fact, since 9/11, under just one program, police have taken $2.5 billion in the course of over 61,000 seizures of cash alone from people who, and this is the mind-blowing part, were not charged with a crime.
Unbelievable.
That is the sort of police behaviour that we laugh at other countries for, along with their accents and silly hats. The way civil forfeiture generally works is that if the police believe they have a preponderance of the evidence that suggests your property was or could be used in a crime, they may confiscate it. And it gets even weirder.
Many folks are unfamiliar with the idea of civil forfeiture, which is actually a case brought directly against a piece of property where you don't need to be proven guilty of a crime for your goods to be taken away.
Exactly. You don't need to be charged with a crime because it's not you that's on trial, it's your stuff. That's why these cases have historically had eye-catching names, such as, and all of these are real, United States versus $8,850 in US currency, United States versus an article consisting of 50,000 cardboard boxes, more or less, each containing one pair of cracker balls, and United States versus approximately 64,695 pounds of shark fins, which must have been an amazing court case. And do you see those shark fins in the room right now? Yes! There they are! There they are! Let the record show the witnesses pointed at roughly 65,000 pounds of shark fins. Guilty, guilty. And it's also worth noting that your possessions generally have fewer protections under the law than you do.
Under civil forfeiture laws, your property is guilty until you prove it innocent.
How can that be possible? At this point, I'm surprised objects don't have their own civil rights leader, like Martin Scooter King or Harvey Carton of milk. Now, to be fair, civil forfeiture laws have had some positive consequences. They've crippled powerful drug trafficking organisations, thwarted criminals, and returned billions of dollars to victims. The problem is that many police departments are allowed to keep most or all of the money they seize, and knowing that starts to make you wonder about the motivations of these kind of questions.
Before he gets to that, this is what I'm talking about. When you start hearing about, police seizing assets and starting to become a revenue arm for the government or the department itself, think about this. All right, they can keep the money that they steal, that they rob from people. These people who are doing this are no better than pirates on the high sea, trying to rape and pillage along the way. I mean, this is what they're doing. They're stealing. They're literally pulling somebody over and taking their money from them without due process, without this person being convicted or even reaching a courtroom. It didn't even go to a courtroom.
Is there any large amounts of cash in the vehicle?
Are there any large sums of money over $5,000 in cash in the vehicle? How much money you got?
Are there large amounts of U.S. currency in there?
If you ever hear that question, do not answer them.
I'll take whatever cash you got in there, and is that a Slurpee in the cup holder? What flavour? Grape? Never mind. Do you know what? I will take it. I'll take it. The question, do you have cash in the vehicle, is surprisingly common in traffic stops, and the police are prepared to overcome any language barrier to ask it.
Tiene mucho dinero en su truck y trailer?
Let's be clear. He just said, "Tiene mucho dinero in su trucky trailer," which sounds like an alien's first attempt to communicate with humans after crash landing in a Taco Bell. In fact, let's all just pause for a moment to enjoy that sentence, because every single word of it is funny. First, tenny, pronounced incorrectly. Mucho, one of the few words he knows in Spanish. Mucho, repeated word. De Niro, a famed actor. In, a rapid shift to English. Su, rapid shift back to Spanish. Trucky trailer. Now, it's magnificent. That is magnificent. It's a work of art. Now this happened in Tennessee. A state where local law enforcement authorities are allowed to keep as much as 100% of the proceeds from civil forfeitures. A local news investigation found multiple troubling cases of people having money seized, such as George Reeby, who had $20,000 seized after he was stopped for speeding. The police officer argued it was drug money, despite the fact that Reeby had a pretty good explanation.
I told them I had active bids on eBay that I was trying to buy a vehicle, and they just didn't want to hear it.
Inspector Reeby had proof on his computer, but the Monterey officer drew up a damning affidavit citing his own training that common people do not carry this much U.S. currency.
And did he tell you that he was trying to buy a car?
He did.
But you did not include that in your report.
If it's not in there, I didn't put it in there.
So why would you leave that out?
I don't know.
This is corrupt. This is corruption to the bone. These people don't care about law. This is lawlessness. This is what this is. This is what happens when the government becomes the enemy of the people. And I'm not saying that our government, the U.S. government, is against all the people and that, we need to be 1776, all over again. I'm not saying that. What I am saying, though, is that they're targeting us. They're targeting us. They're violating our rights, and they don't give a crap. They think that I don't know is a sufficient answer. This guy knew what he was doing. This police officer knew this gentleman had a good reason to have money. He gave him the reason. He could even document it through proof through the eBay. I'm sure if he was using eBay to actually to buy a car, he had to have had some kind of proof that he could show. Oh, well, this is the car that I wanted to do. And who cares? I mean, if somebody could walk around with $1 million, there's no law against it. It's not a crime to walk around with $1 million. What does that have to do with law enforcement? Why are they involved? I understand what they said as far as, it has made it possible for law enforcement to attack drug cartels and things like that and affect their money. But doing it at the expense of somebody's rights, and even those people who were working for the drug cartel, those rights were violated in order to seize that money. Unless they had proof. This is why we have due process, everybody. Look, I understand the gut reaction to want to do the right thing and make the most effect as possible. I get it. I understand. The problem is that you can't do that while sacrificing liberty or individual rights. You can't. Two wrongs don't make a right all of a sudden, okay? We all were taught that growing up as children. Two wrongs don't make a right. You have to, do the right thing. That's what integrity is doing the right things at all times, even when no one's watching or no one's going to catch you. And these police officers have absolutely no integrity.
What do you mean you don't know? I expect a better answer from a police officer than a 4-year-old who just spilled grape juice on the couch. What happened to your drink? I don't know. If it's not in my glass, it's not in my glass. I don't know. I don't know. And look, it's not always just a roadside stop. In 2008, police raided the Contemporary Art Institute of Detroit during its funk night because it didn't have a liquor license, seizing 44 cars under the argument that simply driving vehicles to the location of an unlawful sale of alcohol was sufficient to seize a car. Which means you may as well seize any car driven by any teenager on prom night because they are all going to Chad's place. Chad's got the hookup. We actually managed to get the security video of that Detroit raid, and you can see the police burst in and arrest people with the disco lights still swirling in the single funkiest shakedown in human history. They each had to pay $900 to get their sort of thing the police should be investigating if they weren't too busy raiding art gallery funk nights. And at this point, you may be thinking, well, sure, the police departments are getting a lot of money from seizing stuff, but I'm sure there are limitations on how they can spend it. Well, allow me to take you to a 2012 Columbia, Missouri Citizen Police Review Board hearing.
How do you decide forfeiture funds?
You know, it's usually based on a need. Well, I'll take that back.
Discretion, though, I'd imagine you sign off on.
Yeah, there's some limitations on it. You know, it's actually there's not really on the forfeiture stuff.
Actually, there's basically no limitations at all. Come to think of it, we're essentially gods. We're gods. We're like the anti-Spider-Man. Great power, no responsibility. I can't believe this hasn't come up before. And look, his honesty was not over.
We just usually base it on something that would be nice to have, that we can't get in the budget, for instance. So, you know, we try not to use it for things that we need to depend on, you know, because we need to go ahead and have those purchased. But it's kind of like pennies from heaven, you know, it gets you a toy or something that you need, is the way we typically look at it.
That's right. That's right. They buy toys with pennies from heaven. Well, they should know those pennies may not be falling from heaven so much as from the pockets of the people they're holding upside down and shaking. And in terms of what kind of toys police departments buy, that really depends. For instance, in Massachusetts, one DA's office used forfeiture money to buy their own Zamboni. Even though, auditors noted, we could not determine where this machine was located or the law enforcement purpose it serves. Although that last one is obvious. Just think about it. Because if you are robbing a bank and the police pull up in a Zamboni, you're going to give yourself up just out of sheer curiosity. And in Texas, one DA's office had an even more imaginative idea. And I'll let a concerned citizen at a public hearing tell you all about it.
With or without a law degree, everyone here knows that purchases of kegs of beer, margarita machines, and bottles of Crown Royal for office parties, as was done in Montgomery County, don't qualify as expenses for official purposes.
These people are using money stolen from law-abiding citizens or taxpayers or just people driving down the road, not convicted of a crime, not found guilty by a jury of their peers. These people have done nothing wrong in accordance with the law, but just the mere possession of money or assets that these people want can be taken without due process, seized, and then used, 100% of the funds used at the discretion of the police department without any oversight whatsoever, to be used to purchase Zambonis that we can't find the locations of or what their law enforcement purposes was for, and margarita machines. These are pennies from heaven for toys for the department. Not things that they need, but things that they could want, like, I don't know, it'd be nice to have an espresso machine. That'd be great. Well, what law enforcement purpose does that serve, and why are you stealing it from a law-abiding citizen who was not found guilty? Again, this country was founded on the presumption that you will be innocent until proven guilty. But in this case, civil asset forfeiture, your things, your assets, are guilty unless proven innocent, and this is wrong. This is corruption. I have a fundamental problem with it. I really hope that you guys do too. Anyway, that's our show for today. I want to thank you guys, our listeners, for tuning in week after week. And again, I appreciate the support, MacPack. Keep it up. If you made it this far, spread the message about this show. Share our links. Tell your friends and family about it. Have them tune in. We need to get some more people listening and build our audience and all that good stuff. So don't forget to tune in next week. We're going to have more good stuff on there. And you can check us out at OnTheMoveShow.com, here at blogtalkradio.com/OnTheMoveShow, Facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow, YouTube.com/OnTheMoveShow, and Twitter.com/OnTheMoveShow. And as always, know your rights, assert your rights, and get on the move.